When the chips are down and everything's going wrong, that is your last tool that will give you the option of survival.
Thanks, I'm a seizure. Get an ambulance now.
Aliyah Bee is a social media influencer and real estate agent originally from London, now living in Dubai. She's also a former Muslim who converted her faith after her near-death and out-of-body experience. While competing on an extreme survival game show, she became physically exhausted and blacked out several times, feeling her soul leave her body and then return. She's here today to share with you her life, story, message, and what it all means. Aliyah, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me, Adam. And it's a pleasure to be on.
Could you tell us a little bit about your background, and then let's just jump right into your NDE.
Okay, raised in London. I've been on social media for over a decade, doing social media influencing, marketing for different brands. And I had my near-death experience on SAS Who Dares Wins. And I'm going to speak more about it today. I'm 29 years old, and that happened in 2022, September, October. And I'm super excited to talk more. I'm not really excited. I hate that it happened, but I'm super excited to talk to you about the experience and what I saw, etc., and just share my experiences. I also do love to watch near-death experience stories as well.
Is it unpleasant for you to recall these events, or once you start talking about it, is it easier?
The advice that I got from the therapist I spoke to after, he told me to write everything down. Yeah, I'm okay to talk about it. Obviously, at the moment, it's probably one of the scariest things I've ever been through in my entire life. And I've been through a lot. And that was probably one of the most petrifying times in my life.
So I've heard less than 10% of the NDE testimonies have a negative tone to them. So this is like a rare treat, I think, for the audience. Like, I don't know if anyone in my audience watching likes horror films, or I'm excited for what you're about to share. Could you take us back to the day that you had the experience? What happened that caused you to physically die? And then could we just segue in and take about 10 minutes or as long as you need?
My friend said that I should go on this show called SAS Who Dares Wins. I had no idea what that was. And she introduced me to the show briefly in like the summertime of 2022. And she said, Aliyah, I think you'd be great at this show. You love adventures, you love activities, you love all these crazy things. I think you'd be great. You should apply. And I didn't think much of it. And she mentioned it again. When I looked to apply online, it had already gone past the deadline, but I still applied just to see what would happen. Because something just told me, just why not? So I applied as an influencer just to do something new, one of my new side quests. And I didn't think anything of it. And I remember it was the hottest day in the United Kingdom in 2022, like ever. It was 40, 41 degrees, super, super hot. It was a heat wave. And I got a call from one of the producers or the recruiters or something, and they had called me to say that we saw your application and we'd love to have a phone interview. So we did that, and then afterwards we organized another interview. I think it was a Skype one a couple of days later, and I had to do a fitness test and other tests to make sure that I was mentally and physically accepted onto the show, because it is a fitness show. It's like survival of the fittest, so you do have to be a certain weight and be able to swim and all these things to make sure that you're not in actual danger on the show, because it is filmed in extreme climates, either extremely cold or extremely hot. So did those tests, filmed those things, and those tests consist of bleep tests, swimming videos, push-ups in a certain amount of times and a certain amount of push-ups. And so did that, sent that through, and I got accepted. And the filming was in September. I actually had my birthday during the filming, and that was 2022 September, and that was in Vietnam. It was in Vietnam, very humid, very, very beautiful. Vietnam is so stunning. And obviously, whilst we got checked into the hotel, we don't know how long we're going to be there, depending on how good you do on the show, but obviously, as soon as you check into the hotel, I think we were there for a couple of days before we got prepped to go inside. They did encourage us to eat a lot, because they said we're going to burn up to 10,000 calories a day based on the activities we were going to do. So enjoyed the hotel food, remained training inside. I was probably the best shape ever. whilst going into that show. And yeah, so we gave our phones away, our belongings away, and then it was time to start filming. The producers were lovely. The recruiters, what you call your castmates, were lovely as well. And there's 20 of us. And in the show basically consists of different sorts of activities the special forces do. So jumping out of an aeroplane, swimming in the ocean, different sorts of things, like just like survival of the fittest. Just think of that. I don't know much of the show. I still didn't even watch the show until I was basically on it. I was finding out about it on the show. So yeah, very first experience, had no research, but just did it because why not? So I'd say it was day number 3. I'll give you a bit of context because the night before, I think, yeah, that was very hard for me. One of the challenges was a few of us would go out into the darkness, into the forest, and we were meant to have watches that will tell you a set time. So all the watches were broken, which I think was part of the show to make it a bit more difficult, because what the task was to make sure that there was no one in our territory, like it's make pretend in our territory, and to just make sure that we kept guard of our premises, the cabin that we stay in. And we had to take turns. 2 people stay awake for 1 hour or 2 hours, and then we go from then. And I think it was 9 p.m. up until 6 a.m. that we had to do those rotations, but with no watches. How are we meant to tell the time? So we had really bad sleep. It was absolutely terrible, getting bitten by mosquitoes left, right, and center. And nobody came to attack us. So it was just like to mess up our sleep, and no food, no nothing. So definitely fasting the whole evening. And then it was the morning time. The food was okay-ish. And that day I had lack of sleep. And when I have lack of sleep, I don't function well. But it wasn't, I was like fine enough to go on, because obviously I live in Dubai and I'm fine in the heat and no food. But yeah, that day we had very hard activities. We would do hikes for hours, and we do a lot of running uphill with backpacks that weigh 20 kg. It was a lot. And then it got to the point where we had our last activity to the day. So think about from 9 a.m. up until 9 p.m. we had activities back to back without no breaks. And that show is designed for people to obviously quit. And for some reason, our season, a lot of us were very, very strong minded and we didn't quit. I think only one girl left the show, which was, I think, number 20. She left. But apart from that, people weren't dropping out. And apparently the first 2 days, there were meant to be a lot of us dropping out, and nobody dropped out. So I heard later on that the reason that was a big issue for the producers, so they had to make it extremely challenging so that people can drop out quickly. So it got to the evening time and somebody had made a mistake. So when one person makes a mistake, we all pay for it. And we had to do basically a challenge. I don't remember or recall what they call it, but just imagine a square in our like cabin area, and it was like a huge sand pit. So from each corner you do a different activity. It will be like bear crawls from one corner to the next corner, and then maybe you have to carry somebody, and if it doesn't matter how much they weigh, how tall or short they are, you have to carry them on your back to that other corner, and then you guys swap to the next corner, and then there'll be another corner where you have to fill a sandbag, carry it on your back or on your stomach, and go from one corner to the next corner. So each corner you're doing a different exercise, but you cannot stop. That's what the challenge was. So from that exercise, mind you, I haven't had much sleep, not much food because I was so tired during breakfast, working out the whole day. This is 3 days consistent hard work. We're doing crazy things, from swimming to walking on a rope in thousands of feet in the air, with nothing, no protection, just so many different challenges. And now it's day 3 and we get to that point. It's the evening time. I don't know exactly what time, but it was definitely dark. So I remember doing that challenge, and from what I heard afterwards, before I'd passed out, is that exercise time, we actually did that for 75 minutes straight. So no breaks, no water, no stopping. Apparently we were doing those exercises for 75 minutes straight. Now, there was one time in the sand where I started to get a bit dizzy and my face fell flat onto the sand. I remember and recall a loud voice telling me to stop. because I'm such a motivated person, I decided not to stop, and I just thought, no, that is my bad mind trying to get me to stop working hard. I'm going to win this show. I was so motivated. I only came on to win. That was my only motive. I didn't want to have fun. I actually just wanted to win. And I was already injured as well on day 1 or day 2. That's why I have this huge scar here. We had to do a bear crawl. We had to crawl into this tunnel because a lot of people, so everyone has different fears as well, which is what they interview you about. They knew that I had lost 2 children, so obviously that will get you very emotional. Other people had a fear of death. Other people had a fear of tight spaces. So in that tight space, I had accidentally, I think there was a nail in the tunnel and that was open. I was actually meant to get surgery to get this closed up, but I didn't end up doing it because of what happened afterwards. And then my toenail came off. Apparently everyone lost toenails. It was terrible. I'm still trying to grow my toenail from that year. It was horrible. So all those injuries, my arm is wrapped up. I haven't slept the day before. I'm in the sand. My head is facing the sand, and I kept dropping in and out of a sleep. But I just thought that I was just a bit tired. And I definitely heard that voice to tell me to stop. I've never heard a voice so audibly loud before. And yeah, I just ignored it and kept going. So I generally thanks God, because one of the special forces guys, like the host of the show, said, all right, everyone stop. We're going to take a 5-minute break, get some water upstairs and come back down, and we're going to go again. Since none of you guys want to quit, it's like make pretend. They're being like very harsh with us. Since none of you guys were going to quit, we're going to do it again until people drop out, because nobody was dropping out. So that's like 19 of us doing that. And I think Recruiter 20 dropped out in that challenge. I'm not too sure. I think maybe 1 or 2 people dropped, but apparently 9 of us were meant to leave at that stage or something, but nobody was giving up. So the last thing I remembered, like my human mind, was walking upstairs to the cabin and walking to get some water. I'm going to tell you other people's points of views from what they told me afterwards. What I remember is I was walking towards the water tank to get some water. That's the last thing I remember when I was conscious. Other people said that I walked to get some water. My eyes rolled back and I dropped back. One other person said I got water and then there was foam coming from my mouth. I started breathing heavily and then I dropped back. And then, yeah, somebody just said I dropped back and they heard a big boom and everyone just looked at me. And then I just remember waking up at one stage, not remembering where I was, who I was, what my name was, what was happening. I'm looking up and I'm seeing this like wooden ceiling, not knowing what's going on. I look to my right. Obviously, afterwards, I remember it was the doctor on the show. His name is Dr. Raj. I see him and I see another woman, and they're like so surprised to see me like awake. Like, Aliyah, are you okay? I kind of panicked because I still didn't recognize him at that point and didn't know where I was or who I was. So I think I had like something attached to me, like injections inside of me, and I ripped it off. Like, you know, when you're in a hospital, so there was like a hospital set up where my cabin was, where my bed was, because we all slept in that cabin. And I ripped everything off of me and got up, because I think I remember I was on the show, and for whatever reason, my first instinct was like, oh my gosh, I'm on the show, like what's happening? Don't finish without me. That's all I could think of, because nobody was in the room. It was just me, the doctor, and the nurse, and they pinned me back down immediately. And plus, I actually had a lot of weakness. I couldn't actually get up, and I panicked. They told me to calm down, to calm down. I didn't know what was going on. I thought I had missed the show. I didn't know what was happening, but I felt like I was missing out.
You were in the bed, but you were like, I gotta win.
I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm in the bed. Like, what are you guys doing? I need to go back on the show. That was my first thing. But when they pinned me back down, I went back into a sleep. And that's when I entered, I like to call the Sunken Place. Now, I don't know if anyone's watched the movie Get Out, but this is the best way I can describe it, because it's so accurate. Because I love that movie so much that I was in that place. That was the Sunken Place. So there's a scene in the movie Get Out where the main character, the actual actor, his real name is Daniel, he was in a chair opposite to his mother-in-law in the movie, and she tapped a cup and he fell into a sunken place into his own body. That is exactly what happened to me in real life. I sunk into my own body. It was full of darkness. My eyes were the window to that darkness. And I was falling further and further and further away from my eyes. And I knew the further away that I was, the more disconnected I was. So my instinct was to get back to that window. I was 100,000% a spirit. I wasn't a being. I was a spirit. I can't explain to you. And what was happening in real life, I could see it in that window. So like the eyes to my life were in that window, but I was separate to it. Like I was within my body. So my mission was to just get back to the window because I was super scared. That place, I don't know what that place is. Don't want to be there. Absolutely terrified. It was very uncomfortable. And it was such a mission to get back up there because it felt like I had to either swim or fly. It was just hard work to get back to that connection of my real body. So when I was within myself, I was going through the motions, so many different things. I'm thinking, okay, I'm in the presence of God. I'm praying to him. All I do know is to recite the Quran and things like that and pray that way. Nothing was happening. Nothing was changing. Then I started other things, tried to do affirmations or whatever the case may be. But for whatever reason, there's just scripture came out of me, and I've never read the Bible in my entire life. I had never read the Bible, don't know who Christ is, don't know what Christianity is, never been to church as an adult, don't know what that is. And no weapon formed against me shall prosper was the scripture that oozed out of me. When that came out of me, I came back to my body. The first time I came back to my body, my top was off. And I remember, and I have a lot of experience in the medical field just because of a lot of friends that I have different sort of situations. So I know what to do if any of them like have a seizure or if there's an emergency. That's just things I've learned just based off the people that I know. So I knew that my top was off because obviously there's been an emergency happened. They have a bucket of ice of water and she kept putting a cloth in, throwing it on me. I was very, very unconscious. The doctor was absolutely petrified. The nurse was petrified. Every time I came awake, they were like, okay, this is good. Thank goodness. And they were talking to me, asking me questions, and I was still in a daze. I kept falling in and out of my body. And every time I go back in a daze, I go back in that sunken place, and it's like I'm fighting again to swim back to my eyes, back to my body, back to my soul, and it's an ongoing process. The second time I wake up, because obviously in that dark place, I was absolutely petrified. I definitely know that I was surrounded by darkness and a dark presence, but I didn't really have any sort of encounter. I don't really know what happens in the spiritual realm. I do believe it was a spiritual realm. I felt like I was in the presence of someone. I don't know who, but to my knowledge at the time, the thing that's bigger than me is God. So I thought I was in God's presence, but obviously like based off the experience, it was a lot of darkness and fear. I don't think that would be his presence, but at the time, that's just what I associated it with. It was just too big than for me to comprehend. So I tried to fight out of it, get back into my body. The second time I come back into my body, I realized that my face is paralyzed. And I know these things because, like I said, I have friends that have seizures. So I get up and I'm trying to get up and my legs are numb. And then my face is paralyzed. So obviously half of my face is drooped down and I can physically feel it. I've only ever heard about what that feels like and seen what it feels like, but I've never felt what it feels like. And I definitely 100% know I was paralyzed. Half of my face was paralyzed because as I was trying to speak to the doctor, he already gave me the look of, okay, this is more serious now. Because obviously, so I'm paralyzed now. Half my face is paralyzed, which means I had a seizure or having a seizure. And when I'm speaking to him, I'm realizing that I have a seizure. This is funny now, but it wasn't funny then. And I was like to him, Dr. Raj, I'm having a seizure. I'm having a seizure. And he did the right thing because after I spoke to doctors afterwards, he did the right thing to calm me down. And he said, calm down. It's fine. Calm down. It's fine. But the eyes don't lie to you. I could tell that he was very panicked because obviously if somebody dies in the show's over, right? So he's just like, we got to calm you down. So obviously he calmed me down. He didn't confirm or deny if I was having a seizure. So obviously I was. The nurse now sees what's happening. She looks at my face. She screams for help immediately. Somebody get the effing ambulance now. So I'm like, okay, this is the point where I'm dying. And then as soon as that's happening, I also feel my body shutting down. At one of the stages when I was back in my body, back in that space, I do recall feeling like that was the end of it. because this huge presence around me. I felt like I was losing that fight, whatever was happening in the real world and whatever's happening in that dark place.
Was it like swimming, but you're in like air, like
It's
just
like
darkness and air?
it's like space. Imagine falling from the sky, but there's no end. Does that make sense?
It does make
Like I'm
sense.
just falling in slow motion. So literally, like after this, have a look at, and I think when I had spoken about it online somewhere, I did demonstrate a picture. I think even on my Instagram, my first post, I do have a picture of what that felt like, and it literally happens in the movie Get Out, where you're literally falling into the space,
Oh,
and you're so tiny, and you're in this huge. It's like lonely. No one else is there. It's just me, and I 100% know I'm a spirit. I cannot see anything. It's pitch black, but I know that I'm in the presence of something else. There was a stage where I reached the bottom of wherever that place is, um, and whatever that presence was I could communicate with it, but I couldn't see it, and I could speak to it. So one of the times where I came away from my body and there was so much chaos happening because I couldn't control my real body. Every time I come back into my real body, I actually had no control over my arms, my limbs, anything. So it was just like my mouth almost. There was one time where I told the doctor I felt like I was dying. Well, I'll get to that point the last time I woke up and what I remember. But in this dark space, something else was happening. And it then started dragging me to another place. So it's almost as if my eyes are now up, I'm at the very bottom, and now there's a place on the left of me, and it's like a tunnel going elsewhere. Like this place, I know that if I kept going that direction, there was no way I was going to make it back up to the top. So this presence is now dragging me to this place, and I'm asking so many questions like, are you God? What's happening? And I said, what's happening? You know, I'm very young. Am I dying? Is this the end? You know, all these sorts of questions.
and you're
And
doing these
it
questions telepathically? You're just thinking the thoughts?
telepathically, I can't see anyone. I just feel being moved away. So I know that I was a spirit. I got no response. I just know that whatever that thing was got irritated because it only said one thing. And the one thing it said to me, are you coming or not? And I said, oh, I felt, because I felt I didn't understand whether this thing was a good thing or a bad thing until that moment where it said, are you coming or not? I felt like this isn't a great thing that's happening right now. I just felt very uneasy, but I was just like, okay, sure. Because I felt so small in this place, like I had no control, like, you know? So I said, and mind you, everything is very slow where I'm at. And I say, okay, sure. As soon as I literally finish, before the S comes out of my mouth, where I say yes, or whatever I was, the spirit, everything speeds up. And I now go into this tunnel super fast. And I know instantly, without a doubt, with a millisecond, I made a mistake because now things are moving. Cardiac arrest is like a huge announcement that came from this dark place. I now go back into my real body and my heart starts racing super, super fast. Like now I'm in my body, my eyes, I felt like my blood was moving slow. I felt like my heartbeat was like rapid. I felt like I was having a heart attack. My chest was tight. I'm still having a seizure. I'm looking at the doctors. I'm using every single fiber in me left to tell him to the three people that just came out of me instantly. I said, tell my mom I love her. Tell my because I knew it was the end at that time. I just lost the fight physically. I said, tell my mom I love her. Tell my ex I love him. Tell my best friend I love her. And I just let go because I was just so exhausted. And when I went back into that dark space, I was just like, no, I'm still young. I was still trying to fight. But then from there, I felt like something else had to take over for me. So I kept saying the scripture that the only one that I knew is no weapon formed against me shall prosper, trying as hard as I can to fight back into my body. But I wasn't going the way that I want. And then, yeah, I think that fight, I lost control then. The last thing I remember is being in that dark space. There was one time where I woke up and I saw the host of the show carrying me on the stretcher. And then that's where I blanked out and I was in another dimension. I'm now in this other dimension, and till this day, I cannot explain what I saw. Completely, entirely opposite, very bright, but everything was two-dimensional. I don't know how to explain it. I don't, till this day, I don't have the words to explain what I was, who I was, where I was, what was happening. I could draw it the best that I can, but everything was two-dimensional. I was two-dimensional. I don't know how to explain that. I can't explain what I saw. I can't explain what I was till this day. I just don't have any words to explain what I saw. And I kind of accepted that I was dead. But I had no fear there. I was just like accepting that whatever this was, it was fine. No one was there. I don't recall seeing much, but I do know that I was two-dimensional. I don't know. That's the best I can describe it. After that, I then woke up, and I was 100% convinced that I was reincarnated into a new body, because I have no idea where I was. I woke up and I had seen this little Vietnamese man smiling at me. I was in the ambulance and I thought, I don't know, I was born into a new body. He's asking me, do you have a sister? Do you have a sister? For some reason, I do remember having a sister. So I was like, yeah, my sister Siobhan. But he was like, okay, what's your name? And I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what my name was, who I was. I was kind of freaked out because, I don't know, I felt like I was in a new video game. Like, okay, this is my new life, so let me figure it out. But I knew something had happened, but I don't know what. I now I tried to get up in the ambulance, and he's like, sit back down. And obviously in the ambulance, you have this little mirror reflection in the window. I look in the mirror, and it's so funny. I had short hair like this in 2022, and I'm looking, and I don't recognize myself. Like, I'm looking at a stranger. I'm looking at my hands, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I know that I was someone else before. I felt like I was in a new body and I didn't know who I was. So I just laid back down because I was just exhausted from everything that I went through, and fell back into a deep, dark sleep. Didn't know what happened. And then when I woke up the third time, I was now in the hospital. First thing I see is somebody on my right. I think he was shot dead. The hospitals in Vietnam are very weird. When you're on a stretcher, you just get put next to the next person. The next person could be chopped up. You don't know what's going on there. But I was very scared. But that was the first time I felt normal. Like how we're having a conversation now. That's the first time I felt control. I felt okay. I saw the therapist on the show there, and I saw one of the producers there. And I actually felt back alive. And I know that whatever I experienced before was entirely different dimension, totally different space, very scary, definitely a very spiritual experience there. And I was just petrified and just wanted to go home. I was over this. They actually asked me if I wanted to go back on the show. And that voice came back and said, if you go back on the show this time, you will die. So I said, okay, I'm not going on the show. So I said, no, I'm fine. I just want to go home. Because obviously in the competitive side of me, I would have been like, absolutely, yeah, let's do it. Very petrified, but I was actually scared to death. So I said, no, I just want to go home. I want my mother. I want to go home. So they said, okay, sure. So I went home. On the flight back, I actually couldn't sleep. I couldn't sleep after that experience for 2 to 3 weeks. I actually didn't have a sound sleep, and I'm a very easy sleeper. I can sleep fine, but I was actually scared of closing my eyes again. I didn't want to go back to wherever that place was. It was absolutely petrifying. I cried for weeks on end. I actually, my body was so exhausted that on the flight to the UK, I fell asleep on the plane, and I actually woke up screaming because I was so scared to be back in that place. So like I was having like a lot of PTSD, which the therapist did say that was going to be something that would possibly happen in the show. And I got back home. I explained everything to my mom and my friends and my family. I think they thought I was a bit crazy. And I was like, no, guys, I swear. So it was a lot of loneliness as well, trying to explain to people what I saw and also trying to understand what had happened and why the God I followed at the time didn't help me through that situation. Like I was petrified. I was, I just had a lot of questions with my faith. I had a lot of questions with life. I had a lot of questions about everything. Like nothing mattered to me anymore. Like my focus didn't matter. I really, even on because people that are watching the show, they don't understand the technical difficulties of what happened before we got on. But as I was driving here, I've noticed recently, I actually remember that near-death experience a lot to kind of like get me to be grateful for every day, every single day. So as I was driving here, you know, I was like, oh, I'm going all the way to my best friend's house to use her Wi-Fi to do this podcast, but I'm just kind of like, I'm just so proud uh, that I'm have another day. So I will always try my best with every single hour, every single minute that I get given, because I know exactly what it was like to almost lose it all. And that was such a terrifying feeling. So every day I do actually ask myself, like, am I living my life to the fullest? If I were to die tomorrow, did I do my best that day? So I do think about that quite a lot. And that's actually what gets me going. So it did change me in that aspect. And it obviously also changed my whole faith. I actually ran to God after that experience. I'd been through so much before: divorce, losing 2 children, burying my first 2 children. That's the first funeral I've ever been to. Now that experience was more scary than the things I've been through before. So that exalted me to go straight forward to God and seek Him first, because when you're in solitude, you really have that encounter with Him. I believe in God, and I felt like I just didn't realize how important and how special life is, how much of a gift it is. And yeah, I just felt a lot of regret in that moment, because like I was trying to fight for my life at the end. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm only 25, 26. I have so much life ahead of me. I'm not done yet. I don't feel like my journey's done yet. And I do feel like I had the grace of God, because I do feel like I definitely should have died in that moment. I know that it was definitely the end. But for whatever reason, I'm back again. There have been days where I'm like, why am I back again? I don't understand why God put me back into this place again. But I am ever so grateful for it. But yeah, scariest experience of my life. Till this day, I feel crazy. I've had maybe 2 to 3 emails where people have had the same exact experience as me. So that's given me so much comfort, which I thought no one in the world has ever experienced. I thought this was an original experience, but clearly there's something there, because if 2 to 3 people have emailed me that they had the exact same encounter, exact same situation, obviously probably not on a fitness show, but in a different way, then there's something real there. And it's been super comforting to know that somebody understands, because when I tell my story, everyone's just like, wow, that is crazy. Oh my goodness. But to hear somebody else say, oh my gosh, me too. That happened to me as well. And I'm also have the same questions. And I remember this. And people thought I was crazy too. It's just so comforting to know that this is something that's happened before. And there's something real there. I still don't know what happened. There's questions I have for God later on. But I do feel like it's the grace of God that I got through that. I don't know why that happened. I don't think it was just exhaustion or dehydration or lack of sleep. I've been dehydrated, I've been exhausted, and I've had lack of sleep, and I've lived in Dubai. And I can tell you for free, that was definitely 100,000% a spiritual experience that clearly obviously needed to happen, because I'm ever so grateful for life now. Maybe I just wasn't before, or I don't know why that had to happen, but I do also feel like it also made me find Jesus, because I was seeking God after that. Before, you had asked me why Dubai, and like I told you, I wanted to find God, one of my reasons. So I came to the UAE to get closer to Allah, because I was in Islam at the time. But I had some questions as to why scripture came in the picture, and things changed when that happened. So that was something I just couldn't ignore anymore. So I did end up actually giving my life to Christ, and I am a Christian, not for that reason, but because Jesus has shown up when I did a very mediocre prayer in August of 2023, where I said I came to the UAE to seek God, and I found myself in a new relationship, and I just can't do a relationship without God being the foundation. So I decided to give up Islam, because I said I was going to follow it further by myself. It had been 6 years by then, and nothing changed for me spiritually. So something told me, a little voice said, give your life to Christ. I can tell you now, Adam, that was never on my list. I actually had Buddhism next. I was going to move to Bali or Thailand afterwards. So it was very strategic why I chose Dubai, because I could easily fly to Bali or Thailand after. I love Thailand and probably check out Buddhism. But Christianity wasn't on the list. But as soon as I heard that little voice say, give your life to Christ, I searched up a little salvation prayer online. I think it probably was Billy Graham or someone. And I followed that salvation prayer on my way heading out somewhere. And after that prayer, God spoke to me through dreams and definitely had many encounters with Jesus. And he guided me to get a Bible. My only task for 2024, my goal for 2024 was to finish the Bible. And I finished it cover to cover. And I felt more in love. I had more questions. I felt like I lived the life with my eyes closed, and now my eyes are open. He guided me to a church. I got baptized on May 26, 2024. And yeah, it's been incredible. I'm now part of the kids team in my local church. I have moved churches because I moved on spiritually, but I'm so grateful for the first church that got me baptized. And yeah, I'm part of the kids team. I'm a kids coach, kids leader actually now, in the kids team, and I take care of them in church. I go religiously every Sunday. I'm so happy. It's a community that's changed my life entirely. Jesus has changed my life entirely. I still have questions about that day. He hasn't really spoken about that, but I do know the plans that he has for my future. And I feel so much at peace now. I feel healed. And the journey has been harder actually finding Christ, but it's actually been more rewarding because I have peace and joy and actual just clarity. I actually now feel like I have a relationship with God and I know who God is, and that's just been so comforting. So I give thanks for that experience, although it was petrifying. But God does meet you at rock bottom, and I do believe that's what happened.
That's beautiful. And I do have some questions, and I'm blown away. I'm actually very happy to hear that you had dreams about being with Jesus as well.
There's dreams, and then I enter a different dimension now. I was never a dreamer before. I had maybe one dream um, when I was pregnant, and I actually knew that I was going to lose the baby. It's a very vivid dream that had happened, and that wasn't a dream. I'd say it's almost like I was in another place. It was so real. So I have encountered Jesus twice, um, and he is God. He is bigger and brighter than you can ever imagine. And when they say every knee shall bow, the first thing I did when I was in his presence, I don't know what it was. I just had to bow and I cried at his feet. I couldn't see him because he was so bright and so bigger than I am. And one thing he told me to do was just believe, believe. And I have had encounters with angels as well. There was one angel that actually encouraged me to leave my ex-boyfriend and said, it's okay to leave this person, you'll be fine, I have you. And that's been a different encounter. There was one time where I was being chased and somebody wanted to kill me and they had a gun, and I said, can I pray for you? And I prayed for him, and he then dropped the gun and bowed down on his knees and praised Jesus, and I praised Jesus with him. So I
While
was
he
like,
was
okay,
chasing
Jesus.
you stopped him and said, "Can I pray for you?"
Yes, and I
That
was
was the
petrified.
encounter.
I didn't know whether he was going to shoot me or not. I was petrified, but for whatever reason, I was like, wait, I have Jesus with me. Why am I scared? So I was just like, can I just pray for you? And when I prayed for him, it's like it stopped him in his, oh, I don't know what happened. Oh, can you still see me? It stopped me in the motion, and he dropped his gun and he bowed down to Jesus, and I just bowed down as well, and we were just praising him together. So
Oh my
that was beautiful.
goodness.
It gave me so much comfort to know that, okay, like all like God is all powerful, all knowing, and uh whatever gave me that courage to speak about him. I'd never experienced anything like that. I've had many nightmares before, and to know that when I bring up Jesus, everything turns around just gives me so much comfort to know that he is so real. And you know uh when his name is mentioned, the enemy will flee. So yeah, many encounters. I know he's so real. He's spoken in so many ways. It's unbelievable, like unbelievable, unbelievable. I have many things. So yeah, I believe and love him so much.
That's beautiful. So you've been having more vivid dreams since the experience of going into the sunken place. Um, can I ask, when you were zipping through that tunnel at a very fast speed and you felt like something was pulling you, would do you now think that might have been like taking you towards like a hellish place or an even worse place?
For sure. And you know what's so funny, Adam? I think I still have the video archived because I had spoken about that experience and in detail, thinking that it was God as a Muslim, and everyone in the comments were like, Aliyah, pray. You were in the presence of darkness. All the Christians were like, you were heading to hell. And I was so frustrated because I was like, I'm trying to talk about this thing that happened to me. Why is everyone saying these things? I couldn't understand, which also added to me to search more. And after my eyes have been opened, and now I look back 100,000%, I was heading to hell. Of course, when I know who, because when I've read the Bible and I know the character of God, I was not in his presence because I was in Islam and I didn't know the character of God, and I didn't have any sort of experience of the spiritual realm. I didn't know what that looks like. I didn't know what that was. And I just know that whatever's bigger than me, my only thing is that whatever's bigger than me, and I believe in one God, it has to be God. I didn't really believe in any sort of devil. But yeah, when I look back now, it was definitely in the presence of darkness. I just knew instantly where it said, are you coming or not? So that sort of question with an attitude made me feel like I already felt like this, I was in the wrong place. And I felt like whatever that thing was deceiving me, and being mysterious until it got frustrated with me because I kept asking too many questions. And then I agreed. And when I felt that regret, I mean, if you're heading to heaven, you're not going to feel regret, right? You're going to
Right.
feel like almost relief. Or I've watched many near-death experiences, and you feel like almost free, and it'll be opposite. You're in light and you're in love, and But I was in darkness, and I was heading straight to more darkness, at rapid speeds. And after some near-death experiences that I've heard of, I do hear of this train, like fast train track to hell. I do hear about some people speaking about that. I wasn't on any sort of transport. I just know that I was moving away from that, my eye window very quickly, and I knew that I was going in the wrong direction. Hence why I changed my mind, and I was like, no, never mind. I want to go back. I haven't lived life that well, so whatever I was facing, I don't think it was going to be a good thing, and I didn't know what that was, and I wasn't ready for it.
So I'm guessing you grew up in a Muslim family and it was just handed down to you, the faith?
Oh,
No.
no, I was not. I actually didn't grow up with any faith in my household. I do recall going to church to visit my cousins, but I'd only attend church service to see my cousins because that's the only way we'd be able to see them on the weekend. My mom said, okay, if you want to see your cousin Stephanie and Josh and Peter, we have to go to church because their parents are very religious. Their friends are very religious. So we'd go to church, and afterwards I go to their house. But I don't remember a single sermon. I actually went to a Christian or Catholic school. I do believe it was Christian school, and we sang like Kumbaya, my Lord, Kumbaya. But I didn't even know that was like not a normal thing, until I asked people, oh, did you guys sing like these rhymes in school? And people were like, no, we didn't sing these rhymes in school. Then I searched my school. I realized I was actually in a Christian school. So I'd always had little encounters of Jesus, not knowing who Jesus was, and none of that. And I actually was searching for God at the age of 18 because I had achieved many things in my life at a young age, but I felt so empty. And soon after I made that intention, I actually met my ex-husband now, and he was like my high school sweetheart, and I really loved his relationship with God, and he obviously believed in Allah. So that relationship that he had with Allah, I wanted for myself because it seemed so pure, so genuine, so disciplined. The first guy I've ever seen where he was like, oh, do you mind if I pray here? So I just really like that. I've never been exposed to prayer, never been invited to church, never, no one's ever said, do you want to read the Bible? None of these things. I didn't actually know. So it's so embarrassing. I always say this to one of my friends. The first time I actually heard of the name Psalm or Psalms was actually when Kanye West named his son Psalms. Kim Kardashian, Kanye West. And I was like, why would they name their child? I didn't know what that was. I was like, what is a psalm? Why would they name his child Psalm? What does that even mean? So it was so embarrassing how the lack of knowledge that I had about Christ and the amazing things that happened. I just knew obviously of Jesus Christ, also known as Isa in the Quran,
Isa.
but
Yeah, Isa.
didn't really know much about everything. I didn't know about Noah and Abraham. I didn't know about all these things. I just kind of was just following other things that made me, I don't know, have a
Sure.
relationship, some sort of relationship.
There's okay, if I remember correctly, there's a scripture verse that says in the Bible, God rewards those who earnestly seek him. And so it sounds to me like you had a sincere desire to know the divine creator source or God, a benevolent God, that might be different from the God that Muslims are thinking about. They have a different conception, right? And so it seems to me like I'll just call it the benevolent source creator God, a good God that's all powerful, righteous, and loving.
Right.
That entity was enabling you to get closer to it or him, right? Because you were
Hmm.
earnestly you wanted to be a Buddhist at one point, and you were so that's really interesting. How do you feel about
Yeah.
does that? Kind of makes sense.
Absolutely. No, I was definitely seeking with my whole heart. It says when you seek God with your whole heart, you'll find him. So I definitely was. And I think he knew that. And do you know what? I always say to people, God will speak to you and have an encounter with you in a way that makes sense to you. Because he obviously had to speak to me in my dreams, which was so loud and clear for me, because I think when I see something so vividly, and he had an encounter with me in that way because he knew that I would listen. Because I think that he knows that I promise you, Adam, I was not taking Christianity seriously. So when I tell you the prayer was mediocre, it was literally like, I'm desperate just to hear from this God that they talk about. I'm just gonna pray it. So like mediocre, but so genuine. It's not like I was praying for hours on end. I was just like, look, I want to know who you are, and I did the salvation prayer, not thinking anything of it, for them to meet me. And for the first time in my life, when I call out for someone and you answer, I'm going to follow whoever that is. So Jesus answered my call. So I always tell people that if you really do seek, like, look, I sat down with a few guys earlier. I think they were Jewish, and they were talking about they're not really as practicing or whatever, and they don't really believe. And I was like, look, the reason why I follow Jesus is because he's the only one that answered my prayers, and he's the only person that actually had an encounter with me. So,
Can you recall a few more details from those dreams about Jesus?
oh my goodness. Okay, so the dreams of Jesus, I'd say, when I say, there was one time there's a huge cross, bigger than I can imagine, humongous, 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 and his presence is even bigger than you can imagine. That, like I said, all I could do is just praise him, fall on my knees and cry. I was just so grateful to be in his presence. It was so
The
comforting,
crying was like
so
happy
amazing.
tears, like tears of joy.
Happy tears, just like, thank you, Jesus. Like, just just love, happy tears. He was so bright and so big that I couldn't even comprehend. I couldn't comprehend it, but just felt like so much love and so much honor to just have an encounter with him in that way. Um, and also, I'd say another time where this was actually where I was actually just praying, um, and he was speaking to me with scripture. Uh, just hearing his voice in the early hours of the morning was also just so comforting, knowing that he listens and he speaks to you. He
Anytime,
really is
right?
just so
Always,
good and
always
so
available for you, right?
always available, always available. And I think it says in John 30, where like, my sheep know my voice. And it also says that, when you quiet down and you listen, he'll speak to you. So I I watched a podcast of this missionary. Her name's, I think, Caroline Ward. And she goes to these war zones in Africa, and they say they hear from God and Jesus so clearly because they're not distracted by the internet, their phones, or anything. And they speak to Jesus like it's nothing. And I was desired that childlike faith. So when in 2024, I really had a lot of encounters because I was seeking, as my first encounters with him. I had the luxury of not having to work as hard because I was in a relationship where he took care of me, and I was able to just focus on the word, and just I had so many different encounters just reading the word. The dreams that I have so many. I have notes and notes and notes. I have a whole journal. I actually dream quite often, and it's a gift that he's actually given me, because I
Beautiful.
wasn't a dreamer before. So it's something that I do very, very often. And I've been shown things before as well. And I've gone back to him to ask him what that means, or like, I know things before they happen. It's very weird.
Are you making your own YouTube content where you share these dreams with the world?
No,
Oh,
I haven't. I
right.
haven't. And maybe I should. I know that I will share a bit more, like in a book one day, speaking a bit more in detail, because those encounters have changed my life. And like I told you, he will, when you knock, he will answer. I found Jesus here in the Middle East, and I've been living here for 3 years. I've only been back to London once, so all my dreams and encounters have been here in the Middle East. And I like to joke to my friends and say that it's so funny. I came to the Middle East, obviously a couple hours away. That's where Jesus used to walk. So if anything, I was gonna find him here, because I'm not too far from where he was walking on this earth. So he's definitely here in Dubai. He's everywhere.
Do you have anything you might like to share with Muslims around the world? Because it's still a very dominant faith all around the world. And I've looked at some of the things that they do and believe, and it's kind of all over the place. I see Muslims that are very peaceful, they think it's a religion of peace. And I see Muslims that are very militant, and they go to extremes and sometimes hurt or kill people in the name of religion. So is there anything you might like to share with Muslims that might be watching?
I think, I try my best to respect everyone's journey, because you just don't know where people are coming from and what experiences that they do have. But one thing I can say, that if you truly seek God, um, and if you give Jesus a chance, just see what happens. And I'm not encouraging anyone to do anything different, because I know how it felt when I was in the religion for so long and had no encounter. It was very hard for me, and I felt so much sadness to see that my partner at the time was possibly having encounters and I wasn't. It was very, very lonely for me. So if somebody is having that experience, or just feeling like um they're a bit lonely, or they're not really hearing much, or if they don't really have much understanding of what they believe in. Because I've had multiple conversations with Muslims, and just like I did, I actually didn't know what I was following, and I didn't really read the Quran quite a lot. I actually went to Quran school for a little bit, and I really, really hated it. I did it to please my partner at the time, to show him that I'm really trying, but I just really hated everything about it. It's almost as if my flesh was rejecting Islam, but I really tried to force it, because I desperately wanted God, and I wasn't having any encounters with him. I would say make sure to be very specific on who you're seeking for, and seek Jesus, because there was one time where I almost gave up in Islam, and I called out to God to see if he was real, and I gave him a specific instruction to wake me up at a specific time if he was real. But obviously I said, God, if you're real, and I took that encounter and associate it with Islam. So, and I think that's why I pursued it a bit longer, because if I had not gotten that encounter, I would have actually gave up Islam at that time. And my prayer was, wake me up at like 3:45 a.m. or 3:42 a.m. if if you're real. And I just felt a huge pounce on my chest that woke me up from my sleep at that same exact time. And I thought my partner had hit me in my sleep, but he actually wasn't even in the room. He was actually praying next door, very quietly. I actually didn't know where he was. I thought he wasn't in the house. And I quickly checked the time, and it was the exact time I told him, God to wake me up. I was like, okay, so you're real. Like, okay, like I literally woke up. But then I associated that with Islam. So call on Jesus, to be more specific, because I think, I believe in one God, and obviously I know that Jesus had an encounter with me there, but call on Jesus. I just see what happens if you feel like you're not having an encounter with anyone in Islam, and see what happens when you maybe try to look into scripture, and it's always good to just explore elsewhere. I don't think how can you know for sure if you don't look other places? Like I told you, Jesus answered my call.
Today's episode is brought to you by Liberty Vacation Rental, a great place to rest in the Wild West, offering fully furnished 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom rentals by Lake Powell, and available for long-term renters at a much lower rate than California prices. Visit the link in the description below for your next vacation. Your story is fascinating, and it's unlike any of the other stories I've heard. Of course, they're all unique, but the concept of like going into a dark void or a sunken place, and then questioning and almost negotiating with an unfamiliar entity or presence. That's fascinating. I know I would like to know a little more about how your faith changed. Like, did you feel? I like to know your feelings around the faith. Because faith can be a lot of things. It can be intellectual. It can be learning
Mhm.
what's in the text. It can be singing, part of singing songs. There's a verse in, I believe in the Bible, of course, but there's also the Gnostic texts like Gospel of Thomas, Gospel of Mary that are lesser known. And you talked about how you really hated going to the Quran school. It didn't feel good inside. You reminded me in the Gospel of Thomas, there's a saying attributed to Jesus, and they don't really have verses and chapters. It's just like 100 different sayings somewhere about there. And one of the sayings, Jesus simply said, "Do not do that which you hate." And when I read that, I thought, well, yeah, that's pretty obvious. But then I was like, wait a minute. How many people are stuck in jobs they hate or friendships or organizations that they hate? And they only go there because like a spouse or someone said, we have to go do this together. But that's not what the
Yeah.
person wants to do. So that you really reminded me of that. Maybe we could talk more about your faith and how it's changing.
Oh no, absolutely. I think I dove into the faith so quickly, and I learned a lot so quickly. Like the gift, even I had so many gifts that opened up that I didn't even know. Like I said, the gift of dreams, like a lot of prophetic dreams, seeing things, knowing things before they happen, um, seeing things change and shift when I pray for myself or others.
So
I
you're
had
seeing the
prayed.
future a little bit and you're getting prophecy visions.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Things before they happen and not knowing what to do about it and asking the Holy Spirit, what shall I do about these things? And says, share them with that person. And I'll call someone and be like, hey, I don't know why I'm sharing this, but I feel like I should be telling you this. And I'll tell them and I'll be like, oh my goodness, Aliyah, like this is the sign I've been waiting for all day. This is the answered prayer. I've been waiting for this sort of encounter, this sort of situation. Thank you so much for calling me and confirming something that I've been praying about. And I'm like, wow, okay, definitely Holy Spirit, because I had no idea how I would know something, you know, like that at all. So those sort of things would be happening is very weird and strange for me. Praying for things and seeing miracles happen. I got raised by my stepfather, but I had no relationship with my biological father. And I actually prayed for both my stepfather and my biological father. Never met my biological father before. And he popped up a week after my prayer. And I mean, that happening out of nowhere after praying for him, like I told you, not even praying as hard, but just genuinely praying, like with a genuine heart, and things shifting in the real realm has been super interesting. And yeah, just things that I've been praying for happening, or just hearing clearly from God, I feel peace, I feel happiness. Now that might not look like the same to everyone, because there could also be chaos happening around me. I might lose a job, or whatever the case may be, lack of finances, and there'd be tests here and there, very weird things that would happen where I'd get a random 5 6 figure deal to talk about Ramadan and Islam out of nowhere on social media when I was like Muslim for six years. And all of a sudden, when I now am Christian and publicly Christian, I now have uh, this sort of situation happen, and me rejecting that to follow Jesus and be devoted to him, I felt like was also a test. So I let go of that opportunity, because that was also me choosing God over money. And when I tell you, I had been praying for a miracle breakthrough in my finances, and for that to come up and for me to reject it, I definitely 100% have a different heart posture and a different way that I move. So I definitely know that I was all in for Jesus, because I completely had done things I'd never do before, because I just love him so much. It's a love I can't explain. I feel contentment. I don't really mind whatever happens, because I know that I have him. Being patient, praying for certain friendships and seeing that happen. You'll pray for things, you might not see them straight away, but generally having faith that they will come, miracles will happen, or weird things that will happen, like just yeah, just seeing how God moves in my life every single day. And asking for signs and wonders, and then him sending those clear signs and wonders. So like, I genuinely still believe the stories and the miracles that have happened within the Bible, like God parting the Red Sea and things like that. He's still the same God, and he still does the same things here. I've seen it happen in my life and within the church, and I 100,000% believe. And sometimes there are harder days than other days, but I still end up back at his altar and back at his feet. My biggest fear was, oh God, I don't want to ever lose myself or lose you, because I just love where I'm at with him. And it hasn't been a day where I stop seeking him, whether it's been through prayer, through even a thought of actually just like thinking about him and talking to him or praying to him, singing to him, praising him, worshiping him, tithing, having conversations about him to other people. Like, I genuinely, he is now the center of my life, which was so different before, because everyone around you can see the shift in me, and that's been amazing. And he's just changed my heart posture. He's changed the way that I act, the things that I believe in, my morals, even though that a lot of the things that I did believe in match what Christianity represent. As I was reading the word, I was like, oh my gosh, like, this is absolutely what I agree with, and this is exactly, I just didn't have the words for it. So a lot of the self-development and self-help books that I read, I saw that they all had inspiration from the Bible. So I was like, oh, I know this. So this is the actual original source where other people get their inspiration. So that was also hurtful as well, because I had to mourn an old life too, because I was so hardcore. Although I followed Islam, I was a bit of a law of attraction junkie, kind of believed in horoscopes, kind of was dabbling and other stuff. To also then read the Bible and read why that is also idol worshipping, and not really, you have to be hot for Jesus, right? Not like lukewarm. So I was completely diverted straight away, almost too much to the point where I could also be a bit judgmental to other people, because when you love God so much, you just want everyone to love him the same, and you just want to get rid of all the bad things in your life and just get rid of everything. I think sometimes there were times where I was a bit maybe too harsh on other people around me, and also had a little chat with Jesus about that, like, calm down, like, other people have different paces. Because I had such a quick radical change quickly, doesn't mean that everyone's on that same journey. Like, reading the Bible actually made me leave the relationship that I was in, that I was praying for, because I read about the person that I should be with and it didn't match what I was reading. And even trusting Jesus in that process was super interesting as well, because I was like, oh wow, like, he was almost a part of my journey as well, finding Christ, to know that I actually didn't need him, and he's not who Christ wanted me to be with. So even just like changing my life in that form, dropping some friends up, just dealing with quote unquote enemies, praying for people that have done me wrong, dealing with those situations entirely differently to how I, Aliyah, would do it myself years ago. Completely different. Like, it's so weird to now go on my knees and pray for people that have done me dirty. It's just completely just changed my heart posture, really understanding and having grace for other people, and forgiveness. Oh my goodness, forgiveness, a lot of deliverance. I've seen God using me in different ways, and I have a lot of different prophecies over my life, but I've still gone to Jesus about certain things. I'm like, Jesus, I will do certain things and I will change my life in certain ways if you show me directly. He knows how to get my attention, because I've been big things and big responsibilities that people say that I have, but I don't know until I hear from God first. So I do wait on him before I ever pray into anything or accept certain prophecy people say over my life. But I definitely walk with God, and I've changed my life entirely, and I've been so loud about it. The advice that I got given to by people that used to handle my work used to say, don't speak about politics, don't speak about religion, just uh, uh, be neutral. And now I'm super loud about Christ, and actually that's what's helped me in my real estate career out here in Dubai. I have done everything that I possibly could as a human being, and it hasn't worked. Everything has been through God. Someone will call me like, hey, I just saw that you are a Christian. For whatever reason, I feel like you'll be more trustworthy than any other broker in Dubai. Here's
Yes.
this. Or here, I have a testimony. And
Right.
actually I love that. Oh, hey, I saw that you're Christian, and I actually feel more comfortable like working with you. Or out of nowhere, I'll be like, God, I really need a deal. I don't know what's happening. I'm telling you, Adam, God has gotten my bills paid. I've had just enough to get by each and every day. I don't know how. I should have left. I shouldn't even
Mhm.
be in Dubai, but somehow he makes it happen.
Dubai
And I
strikes
just, that's
me. Dubai strikes me as a rather expensive place to live, but I don't know.
oh
And
yeah,
yeah, what you're doing, essentially, it embodies what Christ talked about in Matthew chapter 6, verse 33, which was a really significant verse for me. I'm sure you're familiar with it. It's seek first the kingdom of God and its righteousness and all of these things. So like money or clothing or food or whatever, all the things you need to survive are given unto you when you seek first the kingdom.
absolutely, absolutely. And he's definitely been abundant in that way. And yeah, obviously I'm maybe not where I want to be till this day, but one thing I do know is I love God so, so much. So right now we've just started the one of our courses that we're doing in our church, and I just can't wait to actually dive deep. Even with that course, I didn't know how I was going to afford it. I've always wanted to do it because it's a course that you do throughout the year. You do pay lump sums or whatever, and then you go on a missions trip at the end of it. I was praying to God, like, "Oh, God, I really want to do it like this year." My friend just randomly calls me. She's like, "Hey, Leah, do you want to do greenhouse?" I was like, "Yeah, I'd love to, but I don't have to buy that." So she's like, "No, no, on me. I'll get it for you." Like, and she just got me the greenhouse course, and I'm doing wholeness, so knowing your identity within Christ. So that's the course that I'm doing. So I can't wait to dive deep into that because even it itself is an answered prayer. So I've never ever gone a day without God taking care of a meal or a situation, and yeah, I'm just patient and I love him honestly. It's so, so much. I do wish there's days where I could just learn the word of God and just that's all I could do. Obviously, there's responsibilities, but one thing I do have learnt now as well, because when I first came to Christ, I was just a bit so hardcore because I loved him so much and I felt like I missed out on so much of my life. So I was trying to catch up. That now that I know that God uses people in different industries for different missions and different purposes. So everyone is needed in different places. We all need one another. And God is everywhere. And the more you open up and speak about him, the more you spread the gospel, the more that you share your story, your testimony, it changes people. You do not know what you're doing. So that's why I even recently shared my testimony again, because there have been new friends that I've made that don't know my story. And I felt like I have a platform that God has given me and I used it for myself for a long time, but now I give everything back to him, which is why my first pinned post is dedicated to my journey and my testimony. And any person that comes on my profile, if they could even maybe do a salvation prayer or just maybe seek him through a post that I've left on there, then I'm happy, you know. So I do try to save as many people as I can every room that I enter, every place that I'm at.
That's beautiful. And I just want to make sure I clearly understood something earlier because what you said about 10 minutes ago was impressive. You said after you left the Muslim faith and you're still established influencer, the Muslim church or one of the Islamic branches reached out and offered you over $100,000 to do like a video online and promote Islam, and you turned it down. Is that right?
I turned it down.
And you also, just before that, you had prayed to God to ask for help with finances.
I needed the money.
So you prayed to prayer
That
to ask for help.
that collaboration answered. That collaboration is what I needed at the time. We
Wow.
were meant to fly to Saudi to speak about Ramadan and encourage others to look into the faith and everything. And it was going to be us and me and other few influencers. And I went to God and I'm not going to lie to you, I went to God and I said, God, how can I make this about you? How could I possibly speak about you and make this about, you know, Christianity in some way? Could I save souls? And I spoke to my boyfriend at the time. And that's how I even know that we weren't even meant to be together. He's like, you should take it. Like, it's money. You know that you need it. And I was like, no, this is a test, actually. This is a test. And if I fail this test, I'm not really for Jesus. So
Did
I had
you,
to reject that.
I respect that very much. Did you ever have the thought, I could sign the deal, they pay me the money, I get $100,000 in my bank, then I go on and I talk about what I know about Ramadan, and at the very end I say, but you know what? Jesus is the way, everybody. You
No,
didn't want to do that.
not at all. Because the stage that I was at, I just announced my faith online, and the enemy was trying to make me look like a hypocrite and tried
Oh,
to show flaky. She doesn't even stand for Jesus all the way because now she's promoting Ramadan. There's been multiple after even to this the beginning of this year, another one, a collaboration of promoting Ramadan. And it's like I'm bold about my faith online. I don't have an inkling of Islam on my page, which is so funny because, like I told you, for the years that I've been Muslim, I'd never in my life gotten a Muslim deal to speak about anything. And now that when I'm open about Christ, these things happen, you know? So definitely a test. And I definitely think whether it was a test from God or the devil or anything, I just know that I had to stand my ground with Jesus. And these are the things that are going to happen. You know, you have a target on your back when you choose Jesus. So I know the sort of tests that come. Sometimes you also do get tests in other places. I don't know what sort of audience that you have, so I don't want to share this.
I
But
can cut
I'm
it
not
out,
gonna.
but let's go ahead and take a minute or two, and if it's not good, we'll just cut it out because it might be
Okay,
excellent.
this it's so weird. Please don't get creeped out by this. This is very, very vulnerable, very, very
No judgment.
no joke. Okay, so my previous relationship here in Dubai, where I had became Christian, I had a little bit of an addiction to masturbation. Like it was such a stronghold. It was such a stronghold because I was very unhappy with the relationship that I was in. When I gave my life to Christ, I obviously gave that up immediately because God told me to stop immediately. I have never heard the judgment side of God. It was very loving, but very firm. And that's something I had to give up. It wasn't an addiction in a way where I didn't have to give it up. I just thought that you could follow Christ and do both, which you definitely could not. So I gave it up. However, when I gave that up for months on end, I had so many dreams of being raped by this spirit, and it was doing a lot of sexual things to me. And I woke up so panicked and so scared because I was like, I don't even have any feelings towards this act, and I felt like something took it from me. So I know that the devil was tempting me to go back to that sinful act, and I knew it was wrong. And when I was in a dream state, I felt like I lost control and I didn't have any control over it, and something else was trying to rape me or get me to do that act again. When I
Wow.
woke up, I was like, thank goodness it's a dream. And those feelings and those urges and those temptations were not real. And it was, then feel like, okay, thank God it was a dream. And I was like, wow, this is really a test. There's something there that's not meant to happen, even though it wasn't a real life urge. Because when I stop something, I stop. I don't really have many addictions. I thank God for that, actually, the grace of God for that. But I'm like, why is it that when I stop that, I'm getting tempted by it when I don't even feel tempted in real life? I'm like, I don't miss that. It's like the things that I gave up, I don't miss. I don't miss being drunk. I don't miss having sex. I don't miss any of those things, masturbation and any of those things. So to then be tempted in my dreams, I'm like, this is really like a test. Like it
I
because it's
agree.
almost as if I've been tormented. So I'd never ever had those dreams ever in my life. And when I'd given that up, it's almost as if the enemy was so angry that I had given that up. I don't know what spiritually happens in that moment, but it's definitely very demonic because the torment that I'd have months on end after that to try and get me to go back to that act, and I haven't fallen for it. I've had to pray and get delivered by it. It's been a conversation I've had with multiple people in church. Other people have had these issues, and it's like when
Oh
you
yeah,
give up sexual acts, you will have dreams of trying to get you back to make that sinful act again.
yeah.
And that was so interesting to me. So those are like the sort of tests that I've had. Sorry about
Hey,
that. But I was like, oh my
I
gosh,
would
these
love to
dreams are
share on that
very
topic.
creepy. Yeah, very, very creepy.
Yeah,
Very creepy. Um,
it's okay.
yeah,
I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I mean, I can share a little bit on that topic. I mean, I think everybody sooner or later struggles with that. Maybe there's one Catholic nun out there somewhere who's never done that, maybe. But I think for anyone when they do experience intimacy, or you're getting into puberty and your feelings are changing and your genitals are having different feelings. I grew up with a Playboy addiction because I had a family member who did a lifetime subscription to Playboy
Oh
for
wow.
$100 back in like the 60s or something. And so when I grew up, there was just boxes of these magazines around the house, and I found them, and that became a struggle for me. And I think the devil is, I don't know if like the devil is a pleasure seeker, or the devil is experiencing the pleasure through us, but
Hmm.
it had been a battle for me until one day I the house that I now live in, I got rid of all of that paper, I'll just call it trash, all of the
Yeah.
magazines went in the trash, and I watered them down with a big water hose so they'd all be destroyed. I was going to burn them in the fireplace, but I thought that'll just take way too long. So, but if I water them down, they'll be soggy and nobody else can take them or play with them, because that's how a lot of children find it. They find it in the trash, or they
Yes.
find a magazine out in a field somewhere. And so it's I don't think it's definitely not a like a what's the word, and like an unforgivable sin, but it's something that takes you off of the intimacy of being with your spouse, if you get when you get a spouse, and it takes you off of, I think, real intimacy. And it's a fascinating topic, so I think we should include it. And I don't think there's any shame in talking about it, even though it is a touchy subject, right? So,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, for 100%. So I was just mentioning that to show you that you'll get temptations. Because I mean, I wasn't getting those sort of dreams or feeling that sort of way or getting those sort of tormenting things happening to me whilst I was not following Christ. But it's just that now when I've given up things, knowing that they were wrong, not in a way where you get punished, but just more in a way where like it just wasn't something that I should have been doing. Like I told you, I did hear the voice of God to tell me to stop, like audibly. This is now me awake and alive. So I had to follow that, and that
and
was
you really get to hear from the voice of God a lot. That's kind of exciting.
when I'm really tuned in. It's so amazing. That's why I really do miss hearing God so audibly and quietly. Like, because when I have a couple hours before I sleep without any distractions, I hear from God so clearly. And when I fast, I without a doubt hear from him so clearly as well. So yeah, I do know how to reach him, and things to do, and that sort, while especially when you're in a place like Dubai full of distractions.
Mm.
So I'm so glad I have those like secret tools to get in touch with him, but I know he's always talking and speaking to me in different ways and speaks to us in different ways as well. Like we said, you seek him, and he will answer. So yeah, but there are going to be battles when you follow Christ, and I think that's something a lot of people should know about, because they think it's all hunky dory when you give your life to Christ and everything gets great. Actually, you deal with a lot. I had to mourn my old life. I was a bit angry with my friends that were Christian, that I had close to me, that never invited me to church or introduced me to the Bible or Jesus. So I was actually a bit annoyed that I had Christians in my life, and I was like, you guys do not love the Lord. You guys are only now doing it because it's a trend online, which I'm glad for. I'm actually happy with speaking about Christ online, but it's like I felt like almost not like you guys had the gift of being born into a Christian family, and like, what? Come on now. Like, that is like the gift of Jesus is the best thing that's ever happened to me. Like, I feel when even as I'm a part of my church now, and I serve in the kids ministry, I didn't even know there was something like a kids ministry, that there's a whole kids church. And that role is so important as well. Like, to when I walk into the church and the kids are like, Coach Aliyah, like, I love you so much. Hey, hey, hey. I'm like, oh my gosh, you remember me from kids church upstairs? It's just you have such a huge responsibility praying over the kids, and just hearing. There was a young man, he felt called to come to church, and he brought his little boy for the first time, and he went to his church service downstairs. Like, we were upstairs and we took care of him. He cried like 11, 12 times, but he was so brave. And we spoke about Jesus in our church services. Kids church services are the same as the one that happens in the adult services, so there's praise, there's worship, There's the word, the message for the day, salvation as well, on all these things. And I had a little chat with the father weeks later, and he's like, you know what, thank you so much, Aliyah, because my little boy, he actually told me in the car on the first on our first Sunday that he loves Jesus, and that Jesus is his best friend and all these things, and that he knows Jesus. And I was like, yeah, I told you, that little boy, he knows Jesus, he speaks to Jesus. And just that has changed their household so much, because I think his wife is still working on her faith, but just to see that he's taking that responsibility of taking his son every weekend and, you know, growing a relationship with God, it's just been so amazing. That's, you know, it's an honor to be in the room with these kids that just are full of so much love and joy and love Jesus so much. It's just so amazing. So yeah, I'm just so glad. And you know, you go through so many different processes, like I was saying, where you mourn a lot of things that happened. I had to mourn my own life, and I felt embarrassed, almost sad that I didn't know God. I cleared my Instagram of things that I don't want on there anymore, and got rid of a lot of things that I shouldn't have been doing, like dabbling in horoscopes. So just all these convictions. So really cleaned up my life entirely, and yeah, gave it all to God. The gift that he gave me is one of the gifts is the gift of influence. So I gave my platform entirely back to him. And now that's his platform, and he does whatever he wants with it. And I'll post every now and then, but one thing I'm always doing is talking about Jesus. And I think that's the one thing I want to do this time around, as I have another chance in life, I like to call it. I just want to speak about him and love him and do the best that I can to be his servant. I just want to serve for him. And I do ask for guidance often, and he's so involved in my life now before, and I'm just so glad, because that's all I wanted as an 18-year-old girl, was to just have a relationship with him. And that's what I craved when I was in Islam. To now know that I have found Christ, I'm super happy. And yeah, super happy.
Well, you may not have won the survival game show, but you were a superstar in my book. And I think the audience is, I think everyone watching is going to really appreciate this one. And how could people find you on social media? I'm going to make sure I'm following you today.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. My social media name is Aliyah Maria Bee, ALIYAH MARIBEE. I'm on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. I also do real estate as well. I'm a real estate broker, and my name for that is Aliyah the Agent on Instagram. And yeah, I'm out here in Dubai. I love the Lord. Thank you so much, Adam, for letting me speak about, obviously, God Almighty and Jesus up on here, as well as my experience as well, and how that made my way to finding Christ. So yeah, thank you so much for giving me that platform. And I look forward to seeing what other people think of this.
Amen, sister. Amen. That's beautiful. We have a lot in common, believe it or not. I was a realtor many years ago. I set a record. I set a record at my office, actually. Least amount of properties sold. I sold 0 properties. My heart wasn't in it. Speaking of things that you hate doing, I did not really like going to a real estate office. It wasn't really my thing. My dad did really well. My dad did good in real estate. He was
yeah. It's a hard knock life there, but least amount of properties. So I feel you. Oh my goodness, but you're doing an amazing thing right now, Adam. Thank you so much, and keep doing what you're doing, because you're also opening up the floor for people to speak about their journeys, and you never know what that's gonna do, you know.
Hey everyone, now's your chance to subscribe and watch another awesome video on my channel. Don't forget to follow Aliyah and myself on our social media for more. Comment below what impacted you the most from today's video.